So the AFL Round 5 has come and gone, and things going the way that they were have also come and gone. Now we've got Victorian teams moving out of Victoria. We've got teams going to Sydney, teams going to Gold Coast, teams that have to move for the next 4 weeks at least to determine if they can continue their season elsewhere. This is going to be a pinnacle stage of the AFL and its continuing process. Let's hope everything goes well. Let's do it. What's up everybody, it's Aidan Sports Show. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be an AFL reaction for round 5. We've got all the games here, all the scores, and I'm going to give you my honest opinions. The win and loss record will be down below, so this will help determine how many guesses I got right from my predictions video, which by the way, huge thank you for the amount of support on that video. I think that's the best AFL video that I've ever done. And also, we're going to give the losses as well. So every team that I predicted that didn't win will also be down below. So before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on, share the video and the playlist, and let me know in the comments below if your team won, and let me know if you agreed or disagreed with any of my predictions at the beginning of the video. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first team that played was a Thursday night game, and I watched this game and I honestly thought this game was a little bit taken out of context with how well St Kilda played, really. So this was St Kilda and Carlton. Again, Carlton had a fantastic one-quarter game, but unfortunately they couldn't keep it up for all 4 quarters, and St Kilda were able to keep it up for all 4 quarters and consistently as well. So the score was 55-73 in St Kilda's favour. I picked the Saints to win this game, so I thought they just had the better quality. I didn't think necessarily they were the better team, but I did think they had better quality, and in the end that would shine through because these two teams are very inconsistent, and I think it showed today. So again, Carlton had one good quarter and they just couldn't keep it up, and I feel like if Carlton, it's the same with a lot of these teams have the same story really. The first half, it's one team's in favour. The second half, it's a completely different story. But if Carlton were able to keep all 4 quarters, then I think they would be a very dominant team. I honestly think Carlton are a good team that just can't seem to find the consistency within the game, and that's a big problem for them. So St Kilda did very well. Again, another good team in St Kilda. They've beaten the likes of Richmond out of form, and Carlton is probably going to be a decent win for them as well as they move up. I believe they're in the 8 now. They could possibly even be further. I'll show the ladder at the end of the video. I don't have it with me at the moment. So that's one win on the board for me. Next up, we've got Collingwood and Essendon. The Bombers versus the Pies, and a rivalry game, and the rivalry really stuck out here. This was a fantastic game to watch in my opinion. Very, very close. And 2 very good quality teams, but Collingwood really struggled without their players. And that is the first thing I noticed. Jeremy Howe and Sidebottom just weren't there, and therefore Collingwood had like a big gap in the way that they played. Those are 2 very important players for them, and they just didn't end up. They just weren't there. One due to obvious reasons I'm not going to get into at the moment. I might make a separate video about that, and the other one was due to injury. So in the end, I think Essendon were phenomenal. I think they played absolutely phenomenal, and they were very clinical in front of goal, and that led them to the victory. So Essendon beat Collingwood 63-48. Obviously, I predicted the Pies to win, but that was before I knew about the Sidebottom circumstance. So I'm not going to make an excuse for myself. A loss is still a loss, and I still think even without him, Collingwood should have won the game. But they didn't, and in the end, it just shows that Essendon are an enigma type team. You just don't know what to expect from them, but they're 3-1 now, I believe. They've beaten good competition as well, so maybe people are starting to find out a little bit more about what Essendon's all about. Maybe I need to start looking at them a little bit better. But at the end, they still lost to Carlton as well, so they are an enigma team. They've lost and they've won in different circumstances. So it just all depends on what you want to see from Essendon and what Essendon wants to see from themselves. If they can go and get it, then I think they could be a very decent team, and this game proves that in a nutshell, man. So that's 1 win and 1 loss on the board for me. Next up, we've got West Coast and Sydney, and finally West Coast pulled up their socks and got a victory. And I said in the preview, beating Sydney is not going to be a great thing for West Coast, because in the end they expected to win by a mile, and they did win by a mile. But this could hopefully start to pick things up for West Coast and actually allow them to go and play some decent football and actually beat teams they should be beating. This is a team they should have beat, and they beat them. And again, another rivalry game where West Coast proved they were the better team. Sydney, again, look, I think Sydney was just all around dominated in this game, but they getting 43 points against a team like West Coast when they were playing decent is a good account of themselves. I'm not going to go too deep into Sydney this time around. Everybody knows what I think about Sydney. If you don't, go look at previous videos. You know exactly what I think about Sydney. But in the end, West Coast were just the better team, and they showed it here. I don't think even really out of form West Coast would have lost this game. And that's obviously I predicted West Coast to win, as you can see by the way I'm talking about them. So that's 2 wins on the board for me. I'm feeling very good at the moment, but things are going to take a downward spiral soon, don't you worry. So next up, we've got Geelong versus the Gold Coast Suns. Obviously, before we get into the actual result of this game, I think this game was a little bit of a, how do I say, it's similar to the Essendon game where Collingwood gave a good account of themselves and they probably should have won. Gold Coast, in my opinion, probably should have won this game, but they had an injury to one of their draft picks very early on. I'm not sure if it was very early on. I believe it was in the first half, and that kind of stunted any progression that they made during that game. I thought the game was very good until the second half, and then Geelong just went away with it, man. And Geelong ended up winning. I did predict Geelong to win, but I didn't expect it to be this much of a lead that they had. I mean, 89-52 is a very decent scoreline for Geelong. They should be very proud of that. And Gold Coast, you've got Melbourne next, so maybe this is your chance to reignite that flame that you lost with an injury, or maybe this is just shows that you kind of are a two-man team. Who really knows? In the end, Geelong with a very, very outstanding victory and a very, very statement-like win for them. So nothing but respect in that retrospect. Obviously, Gary Ablett had a very good milestone in that game as well. Congratulations to him. Again, I'm not a big Geelong fan, but when there's talent and you know that there's talent out and in the world, and the talent is as great as Gary Ablett, one of the best modern footballers of all time, one of the best footballers in history, you have to give respect where it's due. So I may not like Geelong as a team, but I have to have respect for the greatest players, man. Yeah, Gary Ablett might get a lot of free kicks and all of that. You could say whatever you want about Gary Ablett, but he's a fantastic quality player. He has been for years, and he still is. On the backbone could potentially be his last season, and he's having a fantastic year. So congratulations to Gary Ablett, much respect, and hey, look, honestly, I hope you stick around, but it's your life, man. You decide what you want to do. Next up is Western Bulldogs versus North Melbourne. Now, I predicted the Western Bulldogs to win this game, and they absolutely dominated North Melbourne with an 87-38 scoreline. That's another victory in the books for me. I truly think with all my heart that this was exactly the scoreline that was going to happen. I did not think North Melbourne was going to get anywhere near the Bulldogs. I feel like Bulldogs' defense is definitely vulnerable, but North Melbourne just could not, and I, for the life of me, say could not capitalize on a weakened defense. And Bulldogs had young players come into this game due to injuries, and they did extremely well. They've had players that were out of form doing extremely well, and in the end, I think they're starting to get a little bit of their rhythm back from the start of the season. Maybe that's just me getting too ahead of myself. Again, I really love the way the Bulldogs play, so maybe it is me just getting ahead of myself. But nevertheless, I have to give my opinions, and I think that they're starting to find themselves a little bit. North Melbourne is probably an easier side to beat when they're versing, so we're going to have to see against a little bit of a tougher competition if they can provide the same performance. But in the end, you take any win as you can get it, and Western Bulldogs will be very, very happy with this victory. So, another win for me. Next up, Port Adelaide versus Brisbane, and a statement was made in this game. A big, big, big statement was made in this game. Brisbane beat Port Adelaide 85-48 at the Gabba. That's another loss for me because I predicted Port Adelaide to win the game. Big, big statement. We've seen Port Adelaide versus teams like Gold Coast when they were out of form. Absolutely decimated them. Versing Fremantle out of form, absolutely decimating them. Gold Coast out of form, absolutely decimating them. West Coast out of form and absolutely decimating them. But when they versed the team in form, this was 1 versus 3rd. This was the first team in the AFL versus the 3rd team in the AFL. When Port Adelaide versed a good side, they got absolutely decimated. So there you go. That could be something that people can look at and say, maybe Port Adelaide are not as great of a team as they think they are, or maybe they're not as great as a team as they've shown over the past few weeks, because when they versed a good side, they didn't end up getting the job done. In fact, they was terrible, really. 48, 6 and 12. absolutely terrible performance from Port Adelaide and their players. And Brisbane were phenomenal, man. Brisbane had so many shots on goal. Brisbane were dominating the play, and I think Port Adelaide might need to take a lesson from this. Do I still think they're going to make the top 4? I think with the shortened periods of games, they probably will make the top 4 in my opinion. They're definitely a shoo-in for the 8. But this is just a statement that it's not all butterflies and rainbows for Port Adelaide. They still have a lot of work to do, and they still need to beat the teams that they should beat, and hopefully beat some teams that they know that they shouldn't. And in the end, they might just have a chance. But a big statement loss for them, and they're going to have to really look hard on themselves and think, was this first month just an easy month for us? Or are we actually a team that's maybe mid-table and we're just going to lose to all the bigger teams when they're playing well? That's going to be a big thing to see. Next up, Adelaide versus Fremantle. The battle with both teams having 0 wins. And this was honestly just not a good game at all, if you think about it. Like, this was bottom table game, bottom quality game. There wasn't much in this, to be honest. But in the end, I thought Fremantle actually played so much better than Adelaide, and the score may not show it. Only a 20-point victory for Fremantle. I predicted Freo to win after a little bit of how do I say, an argument inside my brain. I originally picked Adelaide, but then maybe 3 minutes later, I switched to Fremantle. Just a click in my head said, I need to pick Fremantle this game. Why am I picking Adelaide? What have they done to show me that they could even win a game this season? And I guess that change ended up proving me right, because they decimated Adelaide. The only difference is the scoreline doesn't show it. I thought Fremantle ran laps around Adelaide. I didn't think Adelaide were very good at all. And they're comfortably last now. Not far behind from Melbourne, which we'll get into next, but definitely they are last, and they rightfully deserve to be last. And in my opinion, definite wooden spooners. I don't see another team that is as bad as Adelaide at the moment. And even second last, even Fremantle, Melbourne, North Melbourne, any team that you can think of that should pop, Sydney as well. I just think Adelaide are the worst of the bunch, and that's why they are where they are. And again, it's a rebuilding stage. I'll say it all the time. So Adelaide fans, don't be too concerned. You're going to have to suffer through a few years of failure to get to the top. But that's just how every team has to do it. It's time to pay your dues and follow the bottom tier teams until you become that good team again. It's just the way that the AFL is, man. All the teams are going to have to go through it eventually. Some teams are just quicker at it than others. Adelaide might not be a quick team in a rebuilding stage. Speaking of rebuilding stages, the thing that Melbourne has been in for nearly 40 years. Melbourne versus Richmond. Now, again, as a Melbourne fan, I can say a lot of things I need to say about this game, and I am going to speak a lot of things that I need to say about this game. So, Richmond defeated Melbourne 79-52. I obviously predicted the Tigers to win, so that's another win in the column for me, but it's not a good win. And the reason why is I thought Richmond were shocking as well. And this is so sad because we're not beating teams that play terrible. I thought Richmond were terrible. Yes, the score probably doesn't prove it. They played decent in parts, but for the majority, I felt like Melbourne dominated the possession game, dominated the midfield. Defensively, I thought we were shit. That's something we can talk about. I thought we were bad defensively. Offensively, it's the same story as it is all the time, man. We're passing, we're playing a game where we're booting it long and hoping for one tall to get a mark and a bunch of smalls. We had Fritsch. Let's look at the forward line we had again. We had Fritsch in the forward line. Fantastic player. He's a good mark at the ball, but he's definitely undersized. Pickett. Very, very fast. I thought Pickett was sensational against Richmond. Very fast. He has a good leap on him. Again, he's oversized. I'm not saying don't play these players, but I'm saying you need tall players to play with them. One tall player is not going to be enough. You had Jaden Hunt. Again, Jaden Hunt, very quick, very versatile player. He can get past a midfield. He can get past a back line. He can use his pace to end up being in certain positions where you probably don't expect him to be. And that's why I think he's definitely playing. Malmstrom, very sneaky player. But again, Hunt and Malmstrom are undersized players. They are short. They don't play the same style that we tend to play as a football club. And that is hurting all of them tremendously. All of them are getting hurt by this. If we look at the way two years ago, with Simon Goodman playing, how many kicks to the leads did we actually get in every single game? Malmstrom, we were talking about Malmstrom being a rejuvenated player, a fantastic player. He's finding the ball. He's kicking to targets. He's the best creator that we have. Where has he gone? Where has our creators gone? the only ball that we seem to get into the 50 is just a boot long from a clearance. That's the only ball that I ever see going into our 50, and it's not good enough. Only, I think, 2 leads I remember Melbourne getting from a mark. Maybe there's more. Maybe, of course, from the counter attack, from defending to offense, there's obviously 2-on-1 situations. We can make the easy pass, the easy goals we can score, but we can't seem to adapt a kick to a lead. We can't. Obviously, these players are quick. They can beat Richmond's tools in a lead, in a short lead. They could beat Richmond's tools. And we just don't seem to be finding them, man. It seems to be the ball is coming in way too slow, and it's also coming in very, very high into the danger zone, and it never ever works for us. So in the end, until things change, Melbourne will never change. So in retrospect, does that mean Simon Goodwin leaves? Does that mean our coaching staff needs to make a change? I might have to make a separate video about that. I said yesterday that I had enough, but obviously in the heat of the moment, I'm going to say things like that. So I'm not going to actually, I don't really believe in what I said. I still think there's a chance there, but we need to see what we do against other teams. Richmond, of course, is a great team, and losing to them, there's no shame. But the way that they played, there is a little bit of shame. And Max Gore said it himself. This football club needs to win games. We have too much talent not to win games, especially games that we should be winning by a landslide. That second half pressure, that fourth quarter, that pressure that we applied on teams, if we could do that on a consistent basis, there's no reason why we can't win games. And we're going to have to see if Melbourne can do that, man. That's all that it is. We just need to win games. We have the quality. Go and use that quality. Play a different system. Play multiple systems in one game. Make the defense worried. Make the defense nervous about what exactly we're going to do. And in the end, we're going to be a threatening team. Anyway, enough about that. Next up, GWS versus Hawthorne. This is the last game of the series, the last game of the round. GWS comfortably beat Hawthorne 83-49. Again, this is another game that I didn't watch because Melbourne pissed me off so badly that I don't. Usually, if Melbourne lose, I just don't watch another game. It's just the way that it is. I'm sorry. I have a lot of emotion in my team. All my family know that. All my friends know that. I get very, very emotional. Sometimes even frustrated, angry, all these things. So I don't want. I like sometimes when Melbourne lose and I feel like they should win, it's kind of like a zone out. Like I don't want to focus on the AFL anymore. So again, I can't comment, but just looking at the scoreline, it looks like GWS was dominating the game. They were very clinical in front of goal. Hawthorne, we played decent the way that I see it. Their 7-7 is not bad. Obviously the GWS had an advantage being at their home, but this was a win that I really think GWS needed to solidify themselves as a team that's going to keep winning, as a team that's still trying to aim for top 4, because beating Collingwood was a great thing for them, and that was a healthy Collingwood team. Obviously Jeremy Howe injured in the last quarter is not something that Collingwood would have wanted, but in the end it was a well-deserved victory. And now beating Hawthorne comfortably as well, it's just another one of those things. It's a win that they should have gotten. So in the end, fair play. That's a well-deserved win, and obviously that's another win for me. And that's the end of the round 5 AFL match reactions. Going into round 6, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Obviously the move, some people going to Sydney, some people going to Gold Coast, the 4 rotations the rotation of teams that we have to go to 4 weeks, and all this, West Coast of Fremantle finally being able to play in Perth. We're going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about. So stay tuned for round 6. Stay tuned for the AFL round 6 predictions. Have a wonderful and safe day, guys. Take care. Happy.